Hey everybody, Jordan O'Connor here. I'm here to walk you through the 7 steps to cut the crap and start getting happy in your relationships. So if you're intrigued, I'd love to share a little bit more. The first thing you got to do is acknowledge you put yourself exactly there. It is the hardest thing to tell ourselves the truth about, but only you have put you in this circumstance inside of your relationships. You have literally created everything around you, and the only way out of it is to start looking back at yourself. I had to get really honest with myself about many, many things over the last several years. This was one of them. I had done a lot of personal growth, I had been through my spiritual experiences, and yet my relationships were suffering. And the reason why is because I started to let myself feel ultra victimized and start blaming other people. So that leads me to point number 2. If you've managed to stay in this long, then you have acknowledged that there is a piece of you that knows that you've created it, which means you need to stop blaming other people. Blaming other people is such an easy way to dodge the hurt feelings, the resentment feelings, the victim feelings, the blame feelings. It's a way to dodge what's really going on under the pain that's underneath it all. When we start to be blaming on other people, we don't have to actually do our real work and look inside. So the second thing you need to do is stop blaming other people and start having a look where your answers are inside of yourself. The third thing is to stop dodging your shadow. All of us have habits of the mind and the ego, which is designed basically as a personality to protect you. The truth of it is you're going out there and you're wanting to express yourself in your relationships and you want to be honest, but we have parts of ourselves that hold ourselves back. So actually reflecting and separating yourself from the mind and the story of the ego actually allows you to go deeper inside of yourself to find out, well, what are these subconscious stories? What are these ways I'm protecting myself? What is really happening here? So if you're looking to look at your shadow, you need to go into the 4th point, because the reality is it's going to get messy. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some support. So even if you're willing to do this work, go in and tell yourself the truth. Look, it's me. I'm the one who's created this. I'm the one that's blaming others. I need to look inside of myself and start shifting me so I can actually feel back in control and get my power back. I need support. So even if you just have 1 or 2 people that can give you healthy, honest feedback about how you're showing up in your relationships, how you're showing up in the world, you'll be able to actually have a safe place to repattern yourself and your own tendencies for your own themes in your life in a healthy way. But that takes feedback and honesty to actually look at the shadow, actually be willing to go there and have the support so that you can have a little bit of a fall down if it gets messy, but still be loved all the way through it. Because ultimately what you want to do is get so real with yourself that you're not even scared by your own shadow anymore. You become more empowered because you know exactly what they are, you know what your triggers are. They kind of get a little bit cute and cozy after a while, and you can start pointing them out. And when you do that, that's what's going to put you back in the driver's seat inside of your relationships, and not be forcing your agenda and opinions and all of this stuff onto other people. You can get connected back with yourself and move forward. Which leads me to the 5th part, meditation. I cannot emphasize meditation enough. It is so fundamental to recognizing that we are not our mind. We are not the train of thoughts that seems to be chattering all day long. For most of us, we close our eyes and we go inside, and all there is noise and opinions and lists and fears and doubts and cumulative garbage in there. None of it is true. Meditation in a deeper place helps you recognize that the things that are running inside of your mind are actually total garbage, and another way that ego shows up to keep us safe and protected. We all have our wounds, we all have our demons, and we have our shadows to manage, but if we keep buying into and kneeling down to the power of the mind, we are completely hopeless in our lives. So meditation, I cannot emphasize enough, as a way to free yourself and get clear about how to create more happiness in your relationships and tell yourself the truth about the shadows that have been stopping you. Number 6, we need to start to learn to communicate and trust a little again. So for those of us, especially anyone who can relate to the word empath or empathy, any of us who have been caregivers in our work, in our relationships, where we tend to overgive but not do any self-care, there's a huge piece around communication and learning to trust again. So if you have history of betrayal, if you have a history of Promises not being kept to yourself from other people along the way, that wounding over time eventually does affect the nervous system. You become almost a being in constant fight or flight mode, just looking to survive. And we want to be beyond survival at this point. We want to be coming from a deeper place where we can connect to others and still be vulnerable. So that place where we can start to learn to trust again, start with your small group of people. Start just with a few people where you just want to inch forward and get yourself back out there, finding your own voice, finding your words and your truth, and allowing yourself to say, hey, you know what? These are the things that are working in my relationships, and these are the things that aren't, and I'm willing to get honest about it. So that's what it comes down to, is number 7, is moving into being willing to being wrong. So again, when we've been on this personal growth path for a really long time, we've been used to a lot of things or playing with different types of modalities, and yet the results of our relationships just aren't necessarily meeting us where we're at or what we want to create. So going into a deeper place of saying, hey, my shadows are running my show. I need a safe place to actually witness my own self and be witnessed, to actually go into what these shadows are. And so I can actually free myself and release myself from them. They're not as threatening anymore. So being willing to be wrong is the number 1 way to start creating healthy relationships again. If you start caring enough about your relationship with someone, or caring enough about that other person to be willing to drop your ego, it's going to absolutely save your life. And the reality is, if that person in front of you isn't willing to support you while you're trying to do your real work, or they're twisting your words around, or certain things just don't feel right or healthy anymore when you're trying to be vulnerable and learn how to grow, then you need to really be asking yourself from a deeper place if these are people that you want to have in your life anymore. Because you got to acknowledge that this is your time on this planet to shine, to speak your truth. You are worthy of relationships. You are worthy of joy. You are worthy of your freedom. And if you're not giving it to yourself by being willing to say, where have I been protecting myself? Then you're going to miss out on a whole ton of bliss that's available to you. So the perks of doing all of these are really just allowing yourself to commit to seeing your own process and recognizing the freedom that can start to happen in your relationships. Especially when you're willing to be wrong often, it actually gets easier. So here's the thing again, if you're willing to make these changes, it's going to be a little uncomfortable for a while, because you're actually shifting, willing to be wrong, and look at your own blind spots. That's a really vulnerable place to go. But the freedom on the other side, to just be able to be yourself, be able to screw up and not get it perfect, but be able to come back to a safe place where you can say, hey, whoa, that was my shadow stuff again. That was a pain body that jumped in, or however you want to describe that. You can get more accountable and show up fully in your relationships. It's gonna be rough the first few times, because that level of vulnerability is really there, because you got to start looking at the mess, and you got to start, really getting in there. I am more than happy to support you if you're willing to go there. I want to hear more about what your gremlins are up to and how they run the show. But again, with this work and with this practice, you learn to get better at calling them out, and they don't take over your life anymore. You can just show up fully as you are, and then you start magnetizing the right and perfect people around you, and finally say no to things that aren't working for you in a healthy way. So I encourage you to be able to go deeper and free yourself in your relationships. You deserve happiness and freedom. You deserve to be perfectly imperfect. All of it is welcome. All of it is well. And I would love your comments or feedback, anything you want to give me on what works for you, any other tips or ideas on just how to be your real self and to call yourself out on your stuff in a safe and healthy way, so you can move along and be free and not get caught down in the ego game. So that's what I have for today. I hope you're well, and I hope this greets your heart with a smile and a little bit of courage to move a little bit forward in your relationships. Take care now.